That's what you said.
Okay.
Yeah, I can tell that they changed it because on my computer, the formatting is
It's
just
very
different.
different, right? Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
hard for me to find the class that I want to share and this and that. Anyway, okay. Well, welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay,
So
question
good
here
to be
for,
here with you.
yeah, you got one-on-one.
Hmm.
So the question for today is, have you ever been like falsely accused of anything and how did you respond? Will do you think like, will the accuser, let's say if someone would accuse somebody of something that they didn't really do, or someone say, oh yeah, I know you lied, you this, you that, and you know you didn't do it. Will it help to try to talk to them, like defend yourself, silence them back with words, or will it make you seem more guilty? Like, does it like, oh, see, she's being defensive. Must mean she's guilty, right? So the question is, what do we do when someone comes up and makes up some story about us? Do we respond or do we ignore it?
Wow. I think it depends on the person,
Okay.
on the person you're responding to.
Mm-hmm.
Are they gonna listen or not?
Okay. Good.
Are
Go
they
ahead,
gonna
thoughts.
are they gonna, put on their reasonable face,
Mm-hmm.
their reasonable character, or are they just gonna be stubborn and that person is gonna be stubborn, so that it's just whatever
Okay.
you say is not gonna change it.
Okay. Great. Keep that thought.
Okay.
So today we're going to see this, something like this happened to Moshe in the desert. And let's see what he did. And then from that, we could figure out what we do in such situations. And we'll see how correct Shelley is, how close she is or
It's
not.
all on me today, huh?
Yeah, until someone else joins us. Okay. So yeah, so it's Parshas Balak. And it's the whole story with the talking donkey, or more importantly, that Bilam, the non-Jewish prophet, is hired by Balak to curse the Jewish people. Bilam um, fails because he can only prophesy what Hashem tells him to, and Balak is not happy. So in the end, he's looking for a way to weaken the Jewish people, and Bilam gives him a great idea. And basically what he does, the idea is that he says um if you cause the Jewish people to sin, that then they will be weakened and Hashem won't be guarding them as much. And so the woman of Balak, they like sat, they had little shops, and because the Jewish people were kind of there right near the city of the country, or the place of Balak, um, sorry, not Balak, Moab, okay, because Moab is a place where Balak was from, where he was king. Okay, sorry. So the woman would sit there in their little shops, and the Jewish men would go to buy stuff, and then the woman would entice them, and eventually would cause them not just to sin with the woman, but also to idol worship. And because of that, that made the Jewish people poor. So sometimes people seem to be friendly and nice and non-threatening, but that could be dangerous too, because maybe they have ulterior motives in mind. And this is the case here. So let us read
So, the king was Balak,
Balak, and
and
he was king over
Bilam
Moab.
is the one who
Yeah,
had the donkey.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
and that, okay. Okay. I always get it mixed up.
No problem. Okay, go for it. Text one.
Okay. Israel was living in Shittim, and the people began to engage in licentiousness with the daughters of Moab. They invited the people to the feast offerings of their gods, and the people ate and prostrated themselves to their gods. Israel became attached to Baal Peor, and the wrath of God was inflamed against Israel. God said to Moses, take all the leaders of the people and hang those who sinned before God, facing the sun, so that the inflamed wrath of God may withdraw from Israel. Moses said to the judges of Israel, each of you kill his men who have become attached to Baal Peor.
It continues. Go for it.
Behold, one man of Israel came and brought a midnight woman near to his brethren before the eyes of Moses and before the eyes of all Israel, and they were weeping at the tent of meeting's door. Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, saw, and he arose from the community and took a spear in his hand. He went after the man of Israel into the tent and pierced both of them, the Israelite man and the woman, through her abdomen. The plague against Israel ceased. Those who died in the plague were 24,000.
Thank you. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, Eileen.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
No problem. Well, it's you, me, and Shelley so far. So
Oh, okay. Is
Oh.
this Pinchas?
Pinchas. Yeah, no, it says Phineas. The parsha is Balak, but the end of the
Yeah.
parsha is the story of Pinchas.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so here the Bnei Israel, the Jewish people, finally they were kind of on top, and kind of like, you know, the story of last week, where where the whole miracle that happened to them by the valley, whoever listened to last week, and here they are on top, and and King Balak was kind of scared. Hey, that other country got smashed. I don't want anything to happen to my country. And so he was kind of a little nervous about what was going to happen, and that's why he had hired Bilam. Now here we go, and the Jewish people, as I said before, what they did, and we just read in text number 1 what they did, and they sinned, so now they're weakened, and this is because they, I guess, were involved, I don't say, in illicit relations, and because they worshiped the Baal Peor, the idol, which was really terrible sin. And one man, Pinchas, who was the grandson of Aaron, the Kohen Gadol, he stopped this all by killing one of the Jewish leaders, who was like leading in this communal sin. Okay.
Corrupt leader, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, we're going to discuss it more. Yeah. So let's go more deep into the story, and we'll learn about the dishonest accusations, which we mentioned in the beginning. Okay. So, so as I said before, the Jewish people were camped near the country of Moab, and they would go shopping at the Moabite stores, and the woman would entice them and got them. They would say, "Oh, you want to, you want me? You got to first worship the idol." And then the Jews were kind of, it just became like a normal way of life. I don't know how long they were in camp there. I don't think it was that long, but it was enough time for them to get involved in the Moabi and the idol worshiping lifestyle. So they were like celebrating their holidays with them, eating with them, sleeping with them, and all kinds of stuff that they shouldn't have been doing. And it wasn't like there were 1 or 2 people who were doing it secretly, but it was that it became normal and acceptable. That's what was part of the problem. So Hashem took out his wrath. He brought a plague, and he told Moshe, okay, get the leaders, get all the people who are sinning, who are not, acting properly, and got to stop it. You have to stop this immoral behavior. And one tribe, Shimon, they were the ones that were most involved in this communal sin, and they didn't want to spend their fun. They were having a good time, and they went to the leader and said, "Oh, help us! Don't make them stop us. And we want to, we want to do what we're doing. Don't let them stop, us from doing what we want to do."
Wait, I have a question. Did you say Shimon was involved? The tribe of Shimon was involved in the idol worship and all the partying and all that?
They were the tribe that was most involved. There were other people too, but that tribe was like, the majority.
In the anarchy against Hashem?
Yeah, and doing all this.
And isn't it funny? Isn't Shimon, and I forget the other tribe Levi that went to go kill that king because of what they did to their sister?
Yeah, Shem. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but this is like his descendants.
Was that before or after they left Mitzrayim?
Which story?
Shimon and Levi with Dinah.
That was before they even went to Mitzrayim, before Egypt.
Okay.
They were still young, before Yosef was,
Right.
yeah, I think maybe even before Yosef was sold. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay.
Right.
Anyway,
Right, go ahead.
So they went to their leader. His name was Zimri, and they said, "Don't let us be judged. Don't let them take away our enjoyment." So what did Zimri do? Instead of setting a good example, he went out to bat for his immoral immoral tribe. And let's read 2a. Okay, I guess Shelley do it again because I think went off for a moment.
Okay. What did Zimri do? He arose, gathered 24,000 of Israel, and went to Cosbi, princess of Midian, and said to her, "Submit to me." She said to him, "I'm the daughter of a king, and so my father commanded me, submit only to the greatest of them." He said to her, "I too am the head of a tribe. Moreover, I am greater than Moses. As I am the second of the womb, I descend from Simeon, the second of Jacob. And Moses is the third of the womb. He descends from Levi, the third son of Jacob."
And it continues, 1 second. Okay.
Zimri seized her by her forelock and brought her before Moses. He said, "Son of Amram, is this woman forbidden or permitted? And if you say she's forbidden, who permitted the daughter of Jethro to you?" The halacha eluded Moses. All the leaders bawled in their weeping, and this explained that which is written. And they wept at the tent of meeting's door. And it is written thereafter, and Phinehas, son of Eleazar, saw.
Okay, so Zimri, he was, I guess, like a big shot, a hothead. He was very brazen, but not in a good way. And he wanted to make a point, and he wanted to embarrass Moshe. And he says, "Hey, if a Moabite woman is forbidden to me, then how could you marry Zipporah, your wife? Who is she? She's the daughter of Yisro. They're from Midian. She's not Jewish." And so he kind of turned the tables on Moshe. Now he wanted Moshe to look like a bad guy. So, so is it okay for Moshe to marry Zipporah, or was it wrong?
Wait, I have a question. Was Cosby a Midianite?
Yes. No, she was a Moabite.
Okay, so you could marry Midianites, but not Moabites.
That's not even the issue. The issue is, he's saying, "Oh, Zipporah wasn't Jewish. How can you marry her? Why can't I marry this woman? Or not even marry, but just have relations with her?" So was it wrong? Was it wrong for Moshe to marry Zipporah, who was not from the, from the children of Yaakov? So Moshe, he didn't respond. The situation was getting out of hand, and Zimri was parading around with this Moabite princess in front of anyone. And then he, like, in open daylight, he went with her into the tent, like, to go and have a good time with her. And
the tent of meeting where the
no, he went to his home, to his tent, to his private quarters. Like, here, like, and showing everyone, "See, I'm going with this woman, she's mine." And except here, people were in shock. It was immoral. It wasn't right. He was a leader. He wasn't like some Joe Schmo. So why was Moshe silent? Why didn't Moshe stop this and say something? Why didn't he respond to him? Was Moshe guilty of doing the same thing? Why didn't he defend himself? His marrying of Zipporah had a very, very different, for a lot of different reasons. So let's first read Rashi and see what Rashi says, and then we'll go from there.
They were afraid our country was being torn apart.
2b. Okay. Eileen, you want to read? Just have to get away from the background noise. Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's fine.
Alrighty. Who permitted the daughter of Jethro to you? Moses had married. Wait. Who permitted the daughter of Jethro?
That's like what Zimri had said. Now we're going to explain that.
Moses had married before Mount Sinai, and when the Torah was given, they were all non-Jews who entered into the general framework of the mitzvot together. Zipporah entered with them, as did many converts from the mixed multitude.
Okay, so Zipporah and Moshe, they, like, before the giving of the Torah, there wasn't like official stamp of who's Jewish. If you followed God, you were Jewish. And when they got the Torah on Sinai, all those souls, maybe got like the official Jewish stamp. You want to whatever you want to call it. And so, first of all, so it was totally acceptable. And Zipporah had accepted upon herself the 613 mitzvahs. She was practicing. So there was nothing wrong with that. And Cosby, the princess, she was an idol worshiper. She never accepted the mitzvahs on her. Eileen, I think the background noise, maybe someone's listening
Oh,
to their.
sorry.
Okay. So we have a few questions. So number one is, Zimri knew Zipporah was a true convert. So why is he starting up? Number two is, if Moshe could have argued that point, why didn't he? Why did he stay silent?
Well,
So,
it said he didn't know the halacha.
but something doesn't make sense over there. And the
Yeah.
halacha, really, what halacha they didn't know is what to do with such a person.
Mhm.
Not so much what the answer to the question was, but the halacha that they're talking about is what do you do when someone is doing something like this in public, and how do you stop them? And we'll get to that soon. Okay, so text number 3. One of the commentaries say this. Shelley.
Okay, he should at least have answered Zimri. He could have said halacha came into force when the Torah was given, or I converted her. Then perhaps Zimri would have responded and returned into Shuva. And God accepts all returnees.
Okay, so maybe Zimri would have listened and stopped his relationship. So why didn't Moshe say anything? So of course Zimri knew that Zipporah was a true convert, and we'll soon see more. But he still looked accusingly at Moshe's marriage. He saw something different. So maybe Zipporah was a true convert, but he has another what's it called? Gripe? I don't know what the right word is. I'm thinking of with Moshe about this, him being married to Zipporah. And that is, let's read this, number 4. Eileen, can you read it, or is it too much background?
Sure. A woman who converted or was freed from slavery, even if she converted or was freed when she was under 3 years of age, being that she is not a daughter of Israel, she is forbidden to marry a Kohen.
Okay, so Zimri, one of the things that Zimri may have been saying is that Moshe, you're a Kohen, and we'll discuss that, what that means in a minute. And a Kohen cannot marry a
Convert.
So when was Moshe a Kohen?
You
He
said,
was a leader
why
of the
was
church.
Moshe a Kohen?
When was he a
When?
Kohen?
That's my question too. That's what
Yeah.
what
When was he
occurred
a
to me.
Kohen? Isn't Aaron the Kohen
didn't.
Gadol?
Yeah.
Right. So Moshe, remember that when they first erected the Mishkan, they inaugurated it for the first 7 days. Moshe set it up, did all the service, and then took it down all by himself. And then on the 8th day is when the Kohanim, when Aaron and his sons took over. So, so Moshe did serve a capacity of Kohen to kind of train them or teach them how you set up, do the service, and take down the Mishkan. Okay. Now, so he did serve in such capacity at some point in his life for 1 week. Let's see what the Talmud says. Text number 5. Undo it, Shelley.
Sure. Rav said Moses, our teacher, was a high priest and would receive a share of offerings consecrated to heaven. As it says, it was Moses's portion of the ram of inauguration. Priesthood only expired for Moses's descendants, as it says, but as for Moses, the man of God, his sons are named among the tribe of Levi. Yet it also says Moses and Aaron among his priests, and Samuel among those that call upon his name.
Okay, so for Moshe's descendants, they all became part of the tribe of Levi. But since Moshe himself did serve, he was considered a Kohen. So how could he have married Zipporah even though he was a Kohen? So first of all,
well, did he marry Zipporah before he became
definitely, yes. He married Zipporah before he went to Egypt to take the Jews out of Egypt. So that's number 1. Is that a problem? That if a Kohen marries someone is married to someone that's forbidden to Kohen Gadol, let's say, and then they become Kohen Gadol, do they have to divorce their wife or something?
But Moshe was a Levi, right?
Moshe was a Levi, but because he served
the Kohen?
What? Yes, but we just said for 1 week, he's the one that erected the Mishkan, set it, did all the service, and took it all down. The first week that they had the Mishkan standing was an inauguration week.
Is
Oh,
that
gotcha.
because
So he did serve for a short time.
So is that because Hashem was talking to Moses and not to Aaron, so he instructed Moses on what to do and
Well, he
said,
instructed
"Keep
Moses,
Aaron."
he instructed Moses to do it. So even though he instructed Moses to tell Aaron and his sons how to do it, he did,
Yeah.
but besides for that, then he showed them. He was like,
Right.
so that was like in training. So he
Yeah.
was showing them exactly how it's to be done. So
Right.
so he did have some type of, you know, so whether, either way, he did do those services. Okay, maybe considered a Kohen, but then so the question comes up: does a Kohen who marries a widow and then gets promoted to be Kohen Gadol? Kohen Gadol is not allowed to marry a widow. Does he have to divorce his wife? Or if he's engaged to somebody that a Kohen Gadol cannot be married to, and he becomes elected as Kohen Gadol, does he have to break the engagement? Let's read text number 6. I guess Shelley read it.
He was temporarily appointed.
Yeah, right. But let's say in general, let's say a guy named David, I don't know, is a Kohen. He's married to, let's say, a widow, and then they appoint him to be the Kohen Gadol. What happens to his wife? Is that an issue or not? Let's read text number 6.
A priest who betrothed the widow and was appointed to be the high priest may marry her. There was an incident with Yehoshua ben Gamla, who betrothed Martha bat Baitos, who was a widow, and the king appointed him as the high priest, and yet he still married her.
Okay, so it's fine, even if they were engaged. If it was set up from before he actually became Kohen Gadol, it was okay. So there's no issue whatsoever in any way. Even if you'd consider Moshe a Kohen or a Kohen Gadol, there's no problem for him to stay married to Tzipporah because he was married to her before all this happened. So the issue isn't that she was not Jewish from before, because she converted wholeheartedly. It wasn't because he was a Kohen or a Kohen Gadol, because this was, when I say ex post facto, this already happened beforehand. How could Zimri be accusing Moshe of doing something wrong and kind of saying, hey, if you could be married to Tzipporah, I could hang out with Cosby, the princess.
Can I just interject? A Kohen can marry a widow, not a divorce.
Right, but not a Kohen Gadol.
Oh, a Kohen Gadol can't marry a widow?
A Kohen Gadol cannot marry anyone who had any relations with anyone beforehand.
Oh, but what about what is said about Yeshua ben Gamla?
So because he was already betrothed to her beforehand, it was okay.
So
that's what we're saying. So even in any way you twist or turn it, there's no issue with Moshe being married to Tzipporah.
Oh, you mean he was already married to her and then he was appointed?
He was engaged to her.
He was engaged to her. Okay, gotcha.
So that's okay, as long as this whole thing didn't come about after. So Moshe had reasons for being silent. Sometimes when you try to answer people who are being dishonest and manipulating you, it only validates them. The accusers, what's it called? It only validates what they're saying. It only makes their lies like maybe people actually listen to it and say, oh, maybe that's true, or worse. So let's read what the Rebbe says about this. Text number 7. Eileen, you want to read it?
Sure. Okay. We do not always seek to answer the questions of others. Sometimes their questions can be so impertinent as to make a Midianite seem permitted. When the other person honestly intends for the sake of heaven, we must answer even a fool according to their foolishness. But if the other person poses a question in Torah terms with the intention of permitting what the Torah forbids, we must take the approach of do not answer a fool according to their foolishness. Victory is achieved over such an opponent not by engaging in rational debate, but by displaying logic, defying strength.
Okay, so if the question is in good faith, if someone really wants to know an answer, so that makes sense, you answer them. But if someone is asking you just out of chutzpah, just to make problems, then you don't validate them by answering them. Better to ignore them. So here, Zimri is very openly violating the Torah. He doesn't really care about the answer. He's just trying to, make more problems. He asks us, a shiloh. He asks a question. It wasn't bad faith. It wasn't, he's just creating some kind of smoke screen. Okay, well, what's wrong if I do it? If you do it too, what's wrong with me if I do it? So he's just sowing doubt and everything. I'm saying, oh yeah, maybe it's some validity over there. And then he's like wants Moshe to try to, you know, he just wants to pull Moshe down and just justify his own actions. So how to respond is by showing strength. You don't answer, but Pinchas, who actually knew the halacha, which Shelley said, says Moshe didn't know the halacha. Pinchas, who knew the halacha, he went and he carried out the halacha. And that is the zealot one is the one who carries it out, and he killed them, which is what was supposed to happen to them. So he took care of it, and he took a very strong stance out of his allegiance to Moshe and to the Torah. And that's the answer. The answer is if someone's doing something like this and violating in such a public way, you have to, it has to be killed, and it has to be killed by a zealot who's so upset about it. So the lesson we have here is you need to know the difference between good faith question and someone who's just trying to vilify, manipulate, you know, and make problems. And sometimes, and you also need to like put, you know, make sure people realize that the questioner who's asking these, you know, want to say, I don't know if it's rhetorical or just trying to, like, you know, make problems type of questions, you need to like point them out to everybody else. Okay, so what is text number 8? A great poet and philosopher, Shlomo ibn Gabriel. Let's see what he says. 1 second. Go for it, Eileen.
Okay. Wait, hold on. Something went wrong here on me. Hold on. So says silence to the fool. Here is your answer.
Okay, so when someone comes to accuse you, see where it's coming from. If it's honest, engage them. And if it's coming from a place of jest or trying to undermine the Torah, then don't engage them.
Right, because if they're there just to mock you, what are you doing in engaging?
Right, it doesn't help. Exactly. You just got sucked into their trap. If you look at today, we see this a very good example today with what's going on in Israel. People are going around saying, you know, Israel's committing genocide. And they're just, you know, it's totally the opposite and not true. And it's not even, you know, they're not there for an answer. They're just there to try to make more problems and try to cause more trouble for the Israelis. Let's read text number 9 from Proverbs from Mishlei. Shelley?
Do not answer a fool according to his or her folly, lest you become like them. Answer a fool according to their folly, lest they become wise in their sight.
These are two opposites. So what's going on here? How could King Shlomo, who wrote this, write two opposing things right one after the other? Very contradictory. So some say this was so contradictory that they almost didn't want to make the book of Proverbs public. That's what text 10a says. We don't have to read it, but that's basically what text 10a says. The Talmud says, hey, let's, you know, maybe it's not good for us to show this book that doesn't make any sense. That's two opposites. But what does it really mean? Really, King Solomon, who's very, very wise, King Shlomo, he had something else, something in mind, something deeper. It wasn't just, oh, it's two contradictory statements. It really is one statement leading into the other, and you just have to understand it right. And Rashi is going to help us understand that. Text 10b. Eileen, you want to read it?
Sure. The idea contained in these two verses is explicit within them. Do not answer him or her in a matter where answering will only bring you down to their level. Answer a fool in a matter where if you do not answer them, they will be wise in their own eyes.
Okay, so it's one statement, and explains that if you engage, should you engage or should you ignore? This is King Solomon's advice. This is King Solomon's advice. If it's well-intentioned and they just don't know, they're a fool because they really don't know, answer it. But if it's a debate, if they're just a challenge, or they're trying to like cause you problems, then don't answer it. Don't take that bait. So it depends what kind of fool they are. Now we're going to go the next text about dishonest questions and challenges that are not well intended. What do we do? Text number 11. Go for it, Shelley.
When the evil inclination comes, namely namely the heretic, to seduce a person with his or her deceitful claims. The verse says, "Do not answer a fool according to their folly. For if you reply to them, they will overpower you with a never-ending stream of even more corrupt and twisted questions." And how right is that?
So who's our
Really?
biggest adversary in this type of thing, who likes to manipulate us and make us problems? It's the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. They say, "Oh, why are you doing this? Oh, are you sure that's the right thing to do?" And then you got all mixed up, and instead just ignore them. Don't try to fight the Yetzer Hara. I mean, don't try to answer them. Just what's right, so you just ignore it. Let's read text number 12 from Moshe Rosenbaum. Okay, go for it, Eileen. It's long.
Okay, we can divide misguided people into two categories. There are those who seek out the logic of a mitzvah, but so long as they do not yet understand it, they view it as odd and ridicule God's command. Only once they understand the reason will they accept it and act accordingly. This is a wrong-headed way and a foolish behavior. But nonetheless, the wise King Solomon advises, answer this fool according to their folly, the reason being lest they be wise in their sight, saying, I am wise, I'm sophisticated about each mitzvah, unlike those who blindly believe everything and do not understand what they do. However, there is another much worse form of corruption, wherein they question the logic of a mitzvah, intending only to destroy the practice of mitzvot and mock them. They represent their challenge as an innocent question only to hide their intentions from the questioned, posing it deceptively as they were inquiring about the reason for a mitzvah. The wise King Solomon trusts us to discern the intention of a challenger. When we understand they come to deceive, seeking only to excuse and justify themselves. The verse warns, do not answer a fool according to their folly, for it will do no good and they will only mock your words, lest you become like them. Warns that you will only be burned by their tongues' flames and trapped into the snare of their mouths.
Okay. So if a person is ignorant, that's one thing. So that's some of those people who are at those campouts or this or that, and they're, screaming along, ceasefire in Gaza or this or that, and they don't really know why they're there. They don't really know. They just think they're doing the right thing, and they're just ignorant. And then you have the people who are instigators, and they're just making problems because they want to make as much trouble for the Jews and for Israel as possible. So those people, it's not even worth to answer them. But if they're just ignorant, you could try to have an honest conversation. Now in text number 13, there's a more modern day commentary, Shimon Madar. Let's see what he says. Go back to Shelley.
It is better not to answer his or her folly and doubts, the reason being lest you become like them. This means you too will appear to be uncertain trying to resolve your doubts. A fool's entire purpose is to create the perception that you too are doubtful. And then they win. The point that you are just like them. Thus, your lack of response will harm their cause more than any answer you could say. If you answered their query and exposed their mistake entirely, it would indeed harm their cause, but they still gain legitimacy from the fact that you answered their question as if they were onto something. This demonstrates that there are legitimate questions you must answer, but the moment you refuse to reply, their cause suffers more, for they are unable to achieve the aim of their argument to demonstrate that you too have doubt.
It continues.
This is what is meant by so says silence to the fool. Here's your answer. It is as if the person asked, am I right? And your silence itself tells them you are wrong. Still, despite having said not to answer the fool according to their folly, the wise King Solomon continues, answer a fool according to their folly, lest they be wise in their sight. He means you must answer them in a way that they can no longer believe themselves to have been wise. They must find themselves at a loss for an answer. To accomplish this, answer them lightheartedly, for the point is to expose their foolishness and not to lend their argument credence.
I gotta be smart to be able to do it that way. Okay. So this text highlights the power struggle behind a dishonest challenge. So Zimri, he challenges Moshe. He's trying to show that he's greater. He's trying to put Moshe down, and he's trying to create a moral equivalency between him and Moshe. But no, not worth answering him. You know, it's not worth even saying anything because he's only there to destroy Moshe's credibility. So it's very clear
Torah.
that
Like Korach, like Korach.
yeah, well, Korach wasn't doing it to put down Moshe. He really believed that this was the right thing to do. So it's still different over there. It was very clear that Zimri was nowhere near Moshe in moral behavior, but he wanted to try to create doubt, you know, in the people against Moshe. So it's very similar, like gaslighting. He was gaslighting, you know, to Moshe and trying to get into like a conversation or an argument with him and just blow it up even bigger. So the best thing for Moshe to do at that moment was to stay silent. Because he didn't want to know, he didn't want the real truth. You know, it's like right? It's like same thing, the stories of the people of Israel. People were really against it and gaslighting the whole Israel, you know, Palestinian conflict. You know, you could show them as much truth, videos, evidence, pictures, whatever it is that you want to show them, and they don't care. They're not going to take it. You could show how that the Hamas is stealing all the aid, or you could show them what Hamas did, and the ones who are really the gaslighters say, "Oh, it didn't happen. Oh, that video isn't true." Whatever you tell them, it's not going to work. So yes, from someone who's more innocent and just ignorant is one thing, but for these people, just it's not even worth to engage with such an opponent. You know, because then that way you'll take the gas out of the lighters.
Mhm.
So if you don't respond, people start to understand your view. And it's similar to the story of, I was going to share a story, a very famous story of Unasana Toka. It's something that the prayer that we say on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, a very one of the great prayers of the high holidays. And it's a story, and it kind of emphasizes this point. There was a great sage, Rabbi Amnon, and he lived in the 11th century in Mainz, Germany. The local bishop was a very powerful person of the region. He befriended the rabbi and he tried to convince him to convert. Now, Rabbi Amnon was a great rabbi and he was a sage, and he always refused, not interested. I'm Jewish. But one day, the bishop was so manipulative in trying to push Rabbi Amnon to convert that he said, "Okay, give me 3 days and I'll give you a response." He just wanted to like try to get him off his back. But once he did that, he realized it was not a good mistake. Once he gave him that leeway of, "Oh, maybe I will," that was going to lead to not good things. So once he got home, he's like, "Oh my goodness, how could I have given the impression that I would ever consider abandoning Hashem?" And for over the next 3 days, this question tortured him, and he fasted and he prayed and he begged Hashem for forgiveness. And on the 3rd day, the bishop's messengers came to find out what his answer was. And Rabbi Amnon said, "No, I'm not going to convert. I'm going to stay Jewish." And they grabbed him, and the bishop, you know, accusingly was like, "Hey, you said you might. You told me 3 days. What's going on here?" And Rabbi Amnon said, "No, I spoke falsely. I never considered conversion. It was never a possibility for me. But my tongue spoke falsely, and it deserves to be severed." So the bishop said, "Your tongue spoke well, but your feet failed to bring you here." And he amputated Rabbi Amnon's feet, piece by piece, joint by joint. And after that, he said, "Okay, would you like to convert now?" And Rabbi Amnon said no. And then he did the same thing to his hands. And he was sent home in a wheelbarrow. I guess he couldn't move. He didn't have any limbs. And a few days later on Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Amnon asked to be taken to the shul to pray Kedusha. And he asked to be placed before the Aron Kodesh, before the Torahs. And in trembling voice, he recited this prayer, Unasana Toka, which today we say every year on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, a very solemn prayer. And at that point, he passed away, returned his soul to his maker. So here was an example in the story about how serious it is to not give and lend any any feed to the fodder of a gaslighter, of someone an adversary who's just trying to manipulate and bring your downfall. It's better just to ignore them, not even to say, oh, maybe, oh, not to consider anything. So I guess that is the end of our lesson in the class today. I wish we should have ended on a better note. But I guess the main lesson is when to know, is someone bringing up a challenging question because they actually want to know the answer, or they're ignorant, or is it just because they want to just make fun of and ridicule the Torah and Hashem and the mitzvahs. And that is the lesson of today. And thank you both for joining.
Thank you for this class. It was amazing.
Yeah, this is
It
great.
was really amazing.